I've been married to my husband for almost a decade, but despite this, I'm still not his best friend. His ex-wife is, and I'm finding it incredibly hard to trust my hubby. My husband, 36 meters, and I, 34 feet, have been married for 8 years, together for 14, and we have a 4-year-old daughter who is our whole life. He was married before to Eliza, his best friend. They married at 18, stayed together for 2 years, and then divorced. They remained best friends, and when we started dating, Eliza, my husband's other best friend Jack, and my husband were a tight-knit group. Eliza was one of the brothers, while I was always the girlfriend and later the wife, always an outsider. His 2 friends are single, so our house was always a place for them to crash. Ever since we moved in together, they would show up unannounced and do their own thing while I made snacks and full meals. For the first year, I tried my best to integrate into their clique, but it never worked out. It was always awkward, and I felt like I was inserting myself where I didn't belong, so I stopped trying and relegated myself to being a great host while letting them do their thing. At first, I didn't notice, but over the years, resentment had built up. I feel like a 1950s housewife serving drinks and lighting cigarettes for the men. My husband on his own is amazing, and I love him. He has been a great partner and my best friend during these 14 years. The problem is that I'm not his best friend, Eliza is. Every single thing that happens in our life has to be discussed and analyzed with Eliza. Early in our relationship, I got pregnant. I took the test late at night, and we were really scared. Despite this, he was so reassuring, holding me the whole night and telling me he was ready to do whatever I wanted to do. I said I needed to really think about it. The next day, we went to our classes and agreed to meet for lunch. When we met, he asked me how I was feeling, then told me he had the contact information for a doctor who performed pregnancy cancellations. It was illegal back then. I asked how he found one so quickly when I wasn't even sure what I wanted to do. The answer? He had called Eliza early that morning, and she had a friend. I felt so betrayed because this was something that belonged to me, and he went and shared it with someone else. Not just someone else, it's Eliza. Come on, he said. During the next few days, every time I saw him, he had new information from Eliza and her friend. I was so confused and scared, and Eliza convinced my boyfriend we needed to act fast because it would be easier. Under so much pressure, I agreed. Long story short, it was a rat hole of a doctor's office, and I almost died there. To this day, I don't know if I should have kept the baby or not. But it's better not to think about it. When my boyfriend proposed, Eliza was fake mad because he hadn't told her first that he was going to propose. The only way to placate her was to have her as his best man, even though my husband had a male best friend. Every little or major event in our life turns into, yeah, I'm gonna tell Eliza now, you know how she gets. I was SA-ed as a child and confided in my husband, who was the first person I ever told about it. Months later, Eliza and I were alone in our kitchen, and she started talking about something she had heard in the news about a girl raped by a family member. Then, she hugged me. When I started trying for a child and got pregnant, I asked my husband to keep it between us for a little while. It was Wednesday. By Sunday, when I saw Eliza, she congratulated me. I ended up miscarrying. Later, I started looking for a doctor to help me deal with my depression, again, something I wanted to keep to myself. Eliza was so understanding. When I was pregnant with my daughter, Eliza came full of advice about things I should do. I told her to mind her own business, which really hurt her feelings. I stood my ground and told my husband I wasn't going to raise my child with Eliza and didn't want to hear any advice from her. This led to a big fight with my husband because he said I was rude and Eliza was family and already considered herself an auntie. This was the only time I gave my husband an ultimatum: Eliza better keep herself out of my motherhood, or I will leave. Now resentment has reached the point where I don't want her near me, my house, or my husband. I feel like she's more married to my husband than I am. My whole life feels like I'm living in a best friends to lovers drama. I'm not sure why I'm writing this. Probably because I'm sitting alone in a coffee shop, thinking that I want my husband to be my husband, and not feel like a lame love interest in someone else's epic love story. In the past, my husband thought I was being childish. Despite loving him, I can't keep being married like this. I don't feel like I can trust talking to him again without involving Eliza. I don't want to hold ultimatums over him. Update 1. I'm going to start by saying how thankful I am to everybody who showed grace on my last post. This isn't a happy update, if anything. Welcome to the pity, angsty train. After writing my post and reading how most people felt about my situation, my head was full of doubts and sadness. Your opinions weren't a surprise, as most of my friends and family had voiced the same at some point. I guess I'm too slow and need to be punched harder to understand. A few days after my post, I took a pregnancy test, and it was positive. Having a large family is what we always wanted. Ever since my pregnancy cancellation, I've been left with a feeling of having empty arms. Holding my daughter in my arms felt like being whole again, and I knew I needed to grow my arms even more to hold my new baby too. But after the initial happiness, an ugly feeling started to grow in my stomach. I didn't want Eliza in our life. It felt like I had taken off my innocence glasses and was finally able to see her. Like, really see her. Every smile was so fake. Every compliment was always mean-spirited or self-serving. For example, nice potato salad, it was great. Oh, remember, to my husband, that potato salad I made? It was kinda unbelievable blah blah blah, or nice outfit. I love how confident you are. I can't leave the house without making sure my outfit is flawless. Her reactions to my first pregnancy, our wedding, our travels, my second pregnancy, and buying a house, all of it. Everything that should have been between my husband and me always included her, as if our life was a play she should write and direct. On our first Christmas together, she came over while we were decorating. With all her positive criticisms, I ended up sitting in a corner, drinking wine, while she and my husband decorated. She's always here. And by here, I mean in my life. She has a say in everything in my life, to the point that when my husband voices his opinion, I can tell when it's his words and when it's Eliza's. I'm not saying that since I wrote the last post, everyone turned into ultimate villains, but thinking and rethinking about my life with my husband, I've always been a passive character. It's like my husband got himself a pet, and he and Eliza are destined to be endgame once they realize they never stopped loving each other. Some of you, and my sister, might say I'm dormant. I guess I am. I've let this go on for so long that it's become normal. My life isn't bad. My husband hasn't been a bad husband, and Eliza isn't so bad at the bars that she hasn't tried to kill me yet. I know this is clear to everyone else, but for me, this has been my life for years, my day-to-day. I've learned to look away and make myself small so I don't make others uncomfortable. Maybe because I'm pregnant and hormonal, but I'm tired of this. I love my husband, but I feel he can't love me fully with Eliza whispering in his ear and him running like a golden retriever to please her. After all that thinking and rethinking, I sat my husband down and told him we needed to set some strong boundaries because our marriage wasn't working. I didn't feel loved or respected as a wife or even as a person. I explained more or less what I said here. My husband denied everything and tried to explain himself, saying Eliza was like a sister to him. I said even siblings have boundaries. We went back and forth, with him making me doubt myself, suggesting I was trying to control who could or couldn't be in his life. He even joked about needing to sneak away to have a drink with his friends. For a moment, I wondered if I really was crazy. But I stood firm. If he wanted to keep this marriage, Eliza needed to be gone from our lives. At first, I thought low contact would be good enough, but seeing his reaction, I knew that wasn't going to work. Maybe I wouldn't see Eliza, but he certainly would, and I would be antagonized and mocked. Honestly, realizing this made me accept that my marriage was over. So, I asked important questions and pressed, what were his real feelings? Why did they divorce if they were so hung up on each other? Why didn't he leave me sooner? Why hasn't he left me? Does he love Eliza more than me? Why? What is it about her? What does she have that I don't, that makes her impossible to leave? In summary, he loves her, but he also loves me, and he doesn't understand how. Both of us bring something into his life that he doesn't want to lose. He's not sure if he wants a life with Eliza like the one he has with me, a marriage, a family. But she's his soulmate. They divorced because the intensity between them was like fire, they were burning each other. With me, he has calm, peace, and a loving place to return to. He's never cheated, but he admits he sometimes fantasizes about her being me and me being her. They often talk about having this life together but agree that being together would destroy their bond. It's also messed up, my God. I know this was kind of obvious to all of you in my first post, and it should have been obvious to me too. But hearing my husband say he loves another woman, that she's his soulmate, that he's put her at the center of our life, made her an auntie to our daughter, and turned her into some kind of sister-in-law to me, a supposed family friend, it broke me. I'm not going to lie. I collapsed on the floor, hugging his legs, and begged him. I asked what I needed to do for him to love me, to only love me. I felt so pathetic, but I believed everything was worth saving, something as valuable as my marriage. I cried and cried and cried. The hardest part was hearing that there was nothing I could do. This is it. This is everything. I know it's not shocking news to anyone else, but to me, my life is falling apart. The only things holding me together are two little hands that hug me every night and the small being growing in my belly. We haven't discussed anything legal yet. He left the house, and my sister and mom are staying with me for now. Relevant comments. Comment 1. He's a selfish, cruel man. She is just as equally horrible. He used you and kept her around and she played along with it. He says he sees her as a sister but then says he fantasizes about her being you and you being her. Both cannot be true at the same time. She is either a sister to him or he wants her to be his wife. All he does is lie. He was living his best life and got everything he wanted. He has cheated, maybe not physically, doubt it, but emotionally he has. You deserve to find someone who truly loves you and chooses you every single time and not someone who has another choice. You were their little doll to play with. You gave him all of these wonderful things so she didn't have to, but she gets the perks of being your husband's girlfriend without ever having to get pregnant or do any hard labor in a marriage. I'm so sorry. Comment 2. While you're going through this transition, do not share details with him that you don't want Eliza to be privy to. Talk with your sister and your mother. Don't tell him about the baby until you're ready for her to also know. Invest the love you had for him back into yourself and your babies. Eliza doesn't want him, she wants the power in your relationship and the control. He's going to come crawling back to the family you built for him. Don't let him. Update 2. Hopefully, this will be my last update, but not the end for me. Thank you again to everyone who sent me encouraging messages or replied to my last 2 posts. To clarify a few things people asked about or guessed, yes, I'm South American. I live in a very religious country and was raised Catholic. Even though I don't follow any religion now and consider myself atheist, some things are just too deeply ingrained in our brains. And yes, I grew up seeing my mom cry over my dad's multiple affairs. I always thought I'd never let something like that happen to me, but oops. Luckily, I've started seeing a therapist and will heal a lot of these things. One of the very first things I discussed with my therapist was my termination, how deeply it hurt me and how much of an impact it had on my mind. And yes, some of you guessed right. After the termination, I was determined to get something good out of a very traumatic event. Since I loved my then boyfriend so much, I thought maybe our relationship could get stronger and better. I fought hard for that. Then, after a while, it became more of, have I suffered so much for this relationship just to lose it over one thing? No. Later, it was just, this is my life. Go to sleep and get over the pain. Now I realize how similar that mindset was to my mom's when she kept forgiving my dad. But since I wasn't being physically cheated on, it never crossed my mind that I was doing the same thing. Now, about my husband and me, we're getting divorced. I put on my big girl pants and went to talk to him again. I promised myself, and my children, that I would never beg someone to love me. My children wouldn't grow up believing that something is worth more than loving and respecting yourself. So, I went to talk to him, mostly to say I wanted a divorce. That's all. At first, I wanted to write down all the things he did that hurt me and how much they hurt, but what's the point? Communication time is over for us as a couple. He was shocked and then teary because he didn't want a divorce. He tried to convince me to take more time to think. Then he tried to negotiate, asking what I needed to make this work. What did I want? What was he willing to do? He was so generous to offer to distance himself from Eliza to work on our relationship. I laughed like a maniac because he said our family meant everything to him. Our daughter, our new baby, I was the heart of his family. He said he would always love me and be thankful for everything I'd given him. This hurt because, yeah, he doesn't see me as a woman or as his wife. I'm the mother of his children. I'm the one who takes care of him and his house, and he's thankful? It was a long talk, but it was mostly the same thing over and over again. In the end, he proposed that I keep the house, stay married, and continue to use his job's great benefits, even if we weren't together. He said he'd cover all expenses, and we could live in different houses. In the end, he reluctantly agreed to divorce. I'm now working on establishing new boundaries. I agree that we should keep things friendly because we have 2 kids to co-parent. Since he doesn't have a place to live yet, he can come over to spend time with our daughter, take her to the park, etc. But then he started showing up unannounced at our house, cooking for himself, and acting like he still lived there. I was getting really uncomfortable. I had already asked for his keys, but he said he wanted to keep them for emergencies only. One day, I snapped. I told him to either give me the keys back or I would change the locks. Again, he got teary, saying this was still his home. I told him it wasn't anymore, so no more hanging out here. Now I'm thinking it's best to sell this house and find something new that can be mine and the kids' home only. As for Eliza, some of you will be happy to know they're not together. He isn't staying with her, and as far as I know, she has distanced herself from him. Maybe she only liked him when he was in a relationship? Or maybe, now that her power trip is over, she's not interested? He's pretty heartbroken that his absolute best friend isn't with him now. Like, really heartbroken. I know this because a mutual friend told me, and when he comes to pick up our daughter, he seems in bad shape. He's unkempt, has lost some weight, and always looks tired. My pregnancy is going fine. As you might have guessed, I'm not terminating it. So, between a divorce and having a baby this year, I guess I'll have a very eventful year. That's all, I guess. Thanks for the advice. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Sending hugs, good on you. I wanted to say that in your post you said that you are pursuing divorce because you want to teach your children about loving and respecting themselves, and I think that is so honorable. Response: yeah, thanks. I also want to teach myself about loving and respecting myself. Comment 2. I am so happy for you. The idea of a different house is good. You can also just change all the locks. Build a social support group for yourself. Build distance with your ex. Limit interactions. Wish you all the best. Response: I think the new house will be the best without any sad memory, just a fresh start. Also, I want to live closer to my mom and sister since I will be needing their help. Smile.